Hey everyone, it is Jaime Jill Wright with Madlet Musings, and I am so happy today to bring you Ryan Steck, who's an author from Tyndale Publishing. And you have been in the writing world for a long time, though, right? This is not
Yeah.
your first foray. So,
No, Fields of Fire is my first book.
yep.
But I've done this a long time as an editor. I worked with a lot of people as a critic running the Real Book Spy.
Hmm.
I've got to do it all. I did everything first, then decided to become a writer. Yeah.
That's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. I like that. And you've been in the industry long enough to know what makes a good story, and it's time to write yours. So you
I
came up,
hope so. But
yeah.
that was the fear. I mean, that was the fear is like, and I will tell you, I think every author that I've ever like blurbed or reviewed over the last decade had a lot of fun when I was putting a book out because they would always like, do that. They would always tell me like, oh, I'm sweating bullets. Just tell me if you liked it. And I honestly thought they were just being overly nice to me. Like no one really cared if I liked it or not. Right.
No, we care.
But then I send it out to them and I'm on pins and needles. And I don't think there was a single author who blurbed Fields of Fire that just did it straight up. Every single one of them had to mess with me in some way.
Oh
So
my
I'd get like
gosh.
an email and it was like, here's your blurb, buddy. And it was like, Fields of Fire is pretty okay. Don't buy, just get from the library. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they didn't like it at all. And then I'd get like a second email. I was like, ha ha ha, just kidding. Loved it. Great job. Here's the real blurb. So that was a miserable experience for me until I
Oh
realized
man.
that everyone was going to just joke with me and
Yeah.
we better take it in stride.
Well, that whole thing when you have other writers read your stuff too is, I don't know, there's I don't want to say it's friendly competition, but it's just like they're other writers, like they know what they're doing, and you're afraid they're going to see all your flaws.
Oh, it's literally terrifying.
Yeah.
I've been a critic. That's been my living for a decade. It is so much easier being like the reviewer or the critic than the writer.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I knew it, always knew it. I didn't know just how much that was true, like until it was me. You are
Hmm.
so vulnerable when you send these out. You are so vulnerable at
Yeah.
that point.
Yeah.
Everything you've worked on,
Yep.
you know this. Everything that you've dreamed about is all there in 100,000 words, and you're just hoping that they like it, and you
Yep.
don't know if they do. And is it good? Like that was the thing. Like when you're a book spy and a critic and an editor of all this time, everyone's like, "Oh, well, Ryan will know, what a book's supposed to look like." And I'm like, I really wish they wouldn't say that because
Yeah.
what if I know? Like I know
Right.
from other people, but man, when you're so close to your own stuff. So I've just been really blessed and fortunate and so thankful that people seem to have liked it and I get to keep writing these.
Yeah, no, this is great. So you have book one, which is Fields of Fire, and that just came out in paperback. It originally came out in hardcover, and now it's available in paperback. And then you have book two. Did that just come out, or is that still coming
No,
out?
so this comes out August 8th.
August
Lethal
8th.
Range.
Lethal
Yep.
Range. Okay. And they're all part of the a Matthew Red thriller.
Yep.
And they're set in Montana, which is Big Sky Country, which
Yep.
that alone just sold me right there. I'm buying it. I don't care what the book's about. It could be about Amish in Montana, and I will read it
Yeah.
because it's Montana. And there are books about Amish in Montana. I should just say that and then move on. Okay. So tell me about the book. It is elite Marine Raider Matthew Red, and it starts out. I'm just going to start out. This is what grabbed me. This is the first line in the book. Matthew Red wasn't afraid to die, but first he had some killing to do. I'm like, yes, I love it.
Yeah, thank you. It's so the pitch is, and you do these like 100 times,
Right.
and when you do interviews, the pitch, and this is so funny because I say this now, but every one of my children, my wife, our best friends who are in my series, by the way, they all know this too. So the same pitch, we'll be out and about, and someone will like stop and say, "Hey, what's your book about?" And I'll start this pitch, and then they'll finish it, and everyone makes fun of me. Um, and I did an event with my best friends and I started saying it and I looked and they were laughing and I said, give them a microphone and let them finish it because they've heard it so many times. But yeah, it's about a former Marine Raider who returns to his hometown of Montana for the first time in a decade to investigate the death of his adopted father,
Ah,
only to unearth a global conspiracy that only he can stop.
wow. That was a really good pitch.
I didn't write it. I did not write it. I got that from my publisher on something, and I was like, that's pretty good. I think I'm just going to use that. So,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, say it one more time. Let's see if you can do it word for word.
I can, because I've done it literally a million times. Yeah. A former Marine Raider returns to his hometown in Montana for the first time in over a decade to investigate the death of his adopted father, only to unearth a global conspiracy that only he can stop.
Oh, that was epic.
But here's the thing. When my friends do it, so my best friend, Mikey, he's mentioned in Fields of Fire. He's a major character in Lethal Range and all the books moving forward. There's like an ellipsis at the end there where it says a global conspiracy ... that only he can stop.
Yeah.
The pause between that gets longer and longer whenever like they're roasting me out in public and like teasing me. They're like, a global conspiracy that only he can stop. And I'm like, just don't say it like that. Just say it normal, you know?
It's just something like a movie trailer.
It does. That's how they do it. Yeah, they do. They do.
Like if you watch those old movie I'm aging myself. The old movie trailer from the 1990s, you know, it was all that voiceover lay, you know, like they have the scenes from the movies and they're like, you know, the Princess Bride and this deep voice talking. So I don't
feel like the 90s is that long ago. I was born in the 80s. I'm a 90s kid, and I don't feel like that was that long ago.
Well, I know, but it's like my kids say it is. They say I'm ancient.
I know. Mine too.
I'm like, that's not cool. Because I'm not that old. I mean, I'm old. I'm older than you, but
I slipped coming out our back porch yesterday, and my 9-year-old said, "What happened? Why did Daddy fall?" And my 5-year-old said, "I don't know, because he's old." I'm not even 40 yet. Like, I mean, they're just ruthless, you know?
My gosh, they're gonna be shopping for nursing homes for you when you're in your 40s. If that's the way it is.
I know.
Oh man. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the book here, because I have a feeling you and I can go off on all kinds of tangents. So we have Montana. We have an adopted. So he's adopted, and his father's the one that he's kind of out to help, if I'm hearing that correctly.
Yeah, so the premise is that Matthew Red, a former Marine Raider, who was adopted by a cattle rancher in Montana named Jim Bob Thompson, finds out that his dad died and doesn't really buy into the circumstances around it, thinks there's enough going on that there's at least a question mark or two, and goes back home to Montana to try to figure out what might have happened.
Okay.
And you know, that was an important thing. But we were talking before we hit record on this, but I have 6 kids and my first 3 are adopted. And I just thought that was something I wanted to explore and put into my books.
Yeah. Well, and I love the fact too that with the adoption angle, so often if it is in a book, it's exploring the characters, you know, they find out about their birth family or something like that. And I really like that the thrust of this is him and his relationship as it was to his adopted father, and then wanting to find out, you know, what's the story, what happened, and then everything wrapped around that, because that really reinforces that adoption relationship that so often does not get reinforced in fiction, because they're looking back to the original blood family. I was adopted too, so I mean that for me is huge, because adoptive parents are just the bomb.
We try. No, it's for me, one of the takeaways that was always weird to me is when we do like events or something and people will ask, you know, who's your favorite character in the book? I really listen to the responses. I just assume it's always going to be Matthew Red or maybe the love interest, Emily, but a lot of people have come back and said, oh, my favorite character is Jim Bob Thompson, this cattle rancher who basically is dead from the beginning of the book.
Right.
You don't really ever see him, and you never see him and the hero Matthew Red. You never see him together. It's his death that is the launching point that really kicks the book off and brings Red back to Montana.
Okay.
So that was like something that I couldn't let go of. And I just signed another book deal last December for 2 more books, an extension and a novella. And the novella is called Red Christmas. It will come out this holiday season, and it's a prequel novella. So it's 18-year-old Matthew Red at the ranch before he ships out to go join the Marines with Jim Bob Thompson. And it was because I was like writing and I'm like, man, you know, these characters, like I never showed them I never got to write them together.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yeah.
And yet the takeaway was like, I love their relationship. and yet you never really saw it. You saw
Yeah.
what it meant to Red. I tried to put that in the book, but you don't ever see them together. So yeah, so I'm like right now wrapping up that novella, Red Christmas, and I was so excited to write it because I finally got to really put them together and explore
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Oh, that's really cool. It says a lot too for the investment of a father in their child,
Yeah.
and that legacy that sticks with them so much longer after they're gone.
Yeah, my dad is, I mean, like my best friend. Fields of Fire is dedicated to him.
Mm.
Um, I've had a long, career where I always talked about wanting to one day be a novelist,
Hmm.
and along the way have just doubted it would ever happen. The one person that never did was my dad,
Yeah.
who would literally tell people, like, I actually remember like feeling like, don't say that, Dad, because he'd tell people like, yeah, this is, my son Ryan. He works in publishing. He's a critic and editor, but he's going to be an author one day. And I would feel like, Dad, just stop saying that because it might never work out,
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
he would always tell me like, yes, it will. It's going to happen. And just never lost faith in it. And even now, as my workload has picked up and now I got to start cranking out novels, he saw how busy I was, and my kids they're homeschooled and everyone's here. And so my dad at 71 just retired a few weeks ago, and he's here every day now.
Oh,
And he's
that's
like
awesome.
over my shoulder as I'm writing so he can be involved and know what's happening. And he's so
Yeah.
invested in so it's like there's truly nothing like, I think, the father and even with a father and son, and I'm a girl's dad too because I have two daughters, but like that father-son relationship, and that
Yeah.
was what I wanted to explore in these books. In the novella, certainly, which is going to cover Red going into the Marines and dealing with things there, and how his father is there for him during that. Those are things
Yeah.
that I really did want to capture. So I think you're right. I think you hit on that. It's a really important, thing and topic. But
Yeah, it is. And it's one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I don't want to say it gets taken for granted, but I think when people have that relationship, they don't necessarily realize how rare it's becoming.
yeah,
Like every Sunday we go out to my in-laws, and my husband, it's like he and his dad, they're best friends. And my husband doesn't really hang out with a lot of other guys because he's got his dad, and it's just,
I'm the same way.
it's that relationship that just, hell, I got to call dad because something's wrong with the truck, or I got to call dad because
Same.
the roof's leaking. And, it's just so cool as a, raised, I have a brother, but he was older than me. So he left home when I was quite young. And so I was kind of like that only child growing up. And it's just really neat to see that relationship between a father and a son where they're just so tight, and it's just that legacy that just carries on. So
it's so important, and I do think there's something identifiable about that and real to that, which is why I wanted to find a way to incorporate that into the books.
Yeah, I love that. Well, that's awesome. Okay, so we covered that, but this book is not just like a family book. It's I kind of want to compare it to Jack Ryan, but I don't know if that's fair. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, I can tell you when I told my agent I was going to write it.
Okay.
I pitched it as Vince Flynn meets CJ Box.
Okay.
And I remember he said to me, "What's that look like?" And I was like, "I don't know. Give me 9 months and let's see if we can figure it out." And you can. So CJ Box is my favorite living author. Vince Flynn is my all-time favorite author. He passed away. But I love his Mitch Rapp. My youngest son's name is Mitch.
Oh, okay.
Mitch. Mitch Rapp is my favorite character ever created, from the legendary, iconic New York Times bestselling author Vince Flynn. But my son's name is Mitchell Ryan because I was determined we were going to put a Mitch and a Ryan together. So yeah, so he's so important to me. But CJ Box and his Joe Pickett series is about a Wyoming game warden, and it just involves the whole family and this dynamic. And then you have Mitch Rapp, who's like the CIA counterterrorism expert, known as the American assassin. And I thought, what would happen if you merged? We don't ever see Jason Bourne in Montana. No. We don't see that. You don't see the Mitch Rapps. And so I set out to try and figure out what that might look like. And then right on the top here, CJ Box, he Fields of Fire. And that meant you want to talk about being nervous? He is my favorite living author. And we were waiting for a blurb from him. And
please tell me he didn't mess
sleep
with
at
you.
night.
Oh.
No, He's so sweet. He didn't, but he didn't even send it to me. He sent it right to the publisher.
Oh, okay.
So I get like an email from like my team there, and it's like, "Hey Ryan, congrats! This is a great blurb from Chuck because he goes by Chuck."
Okay.
And I'm like, "What do you mean? Like, what does it say? Like, did he send one?" And they were like, "Yeah, you haven't seen it." And I'm like, "No, send it to me." You know, so geeked out over it. It was so amazing. So
that's awesome.
I like to think of it as, you know, a Vince Flynn or something like that, kind of with like a CJ box.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really good comparison. I think that way better than what I was coming up with. Let's just face it.
No, I think you were on. I mean,
I was trying to go, but that's even better. And yeah, I mean, I don't know. Action in Montana. Gosh, and thriller, and yeah, I'm just kind of drooling over here. I'm a horrible interviewer today because I'm just like, it's so good. I'm loving everything I read. So, and I was telling you beforehand that I haven't finished it yet. So no spoilers here from me. And,
no.
And, you know, I'm still working through it, but it's definitely fast paced.
Well, thank you.
And it's definitely full of action. So anybody who loves that type of thing is going to really enjoy it.
I want you to love it. I'll tell you, like, Fields of Fire needed to come first because it's the series launching point. But genuinely, Lethal Range, which is out in August, is the book I always wanted to write.
Okay.
And this is no joke. When I turned it in and you go through, I mean, you know, you're waiting for any feedback from your publisher. Right. They came back and they were like, "Hey, just like an FYI, this book is like all action. Just want to make sure you knew that." And I was like, that was by design. I did that, you know. I knew. I really went for it with that one. And so I sincerely hope if people like Fields of Fire that they'll love the second one. But that was my goal. I like action. I want these books to be realistic, but an escape.
Yeah. Yep.
You want to have fun. And Matthew Redd is, you know, a former Marine Raider. He's kind of a bad dude. He's 6'3.5" and 260 pounds. I like to call him, you know, he's a sledgehammer in a scalpel's world. And I mean, I feel like if you're gonna have a character that big, you might as well use it. So
well, yeah, I kind of got the feeling he was big when I was like getting to, what was it? I think it's chapter 1, but you say he's like banging down a door like a Valkyrie or something. No, like a Viking, not a Valkyrie, Viking berserker splintering the heavy wooden door. And I'm like, okay, dude's big.
He's a big boy. He's a big boy. So yes, in my mind, and people ask a lot, they're like, "Are you Matthew Redd?" And I'm like, no. My wife probably wishes I looked a lot more like Matthew Redd, frankly. To me, I've always seen him as like a younger Jason Momoa.
Okay, yeah.
Aquaman.
Yeah.
That's what I've always seen. And I will say there's some things happening on the movie front there.
I was just going to say, are we getting Jason to play this part?
I was like, we got to get the books to Jason. And I'm with William Morris Endeavor, and they bless them. They've really worked on that. But I mean, I don't know what'll happen in the future, but that's who I've always seen. And I thought, you know, you don't cast Jason Momoa in a movie to not have him do action stuff.
Right.
No. So I wanted Redd to be a big boy to do some of these things. And I figure, like, if you're that big, you know, let's use it. And he's used to being the most intimidating guy in the room. And then in book 1, he runs into there's a bad guy who's got a henchman who's so big he makes Redd look small. And I thought that was a nice little, you know, a twist. And then I will say in book 2, there's another big guy. And my publisher said to me, you know, you're going to have to stop this eventually. Like in book 3, you can't have a guy who's like 8 foot tall fighting Redd. And I'm like, no, I got it. I'm gonna go with that. But yeah, I like to say that, like, people that watch boxing or MMA, they like heavyweights. You like the guys that are big that can knock each other out. And that's why Redd was, you know, he's so big. Yeah.
Well, it kind of reminds me of a scene. My husband and I we were going through the Fast and Furious, you know, every 500 movies that they've ever made of it. And we got to 9, and I was just laughing when Dwayne Johnson, you know, The Rock, walks into the room, and there's this guy who's like, 2 feet taller than him. And I'm like, how big is that dude in real life? Because he just dwarfed Dwayne Johnson. I was like,
so funny that you bring that up, because when I decided Redd was going to be big was watching Fast 5. When Vin Diesel fights The Rock, that fight scene, they throw each other through walls.
Right.
There's literally a scene that's like pays homage to that in book 2, where 2 big guys. That's more fun to watch, I think. Sometimes, you know, those big brawlers that and I think there's like a part of me that like, again, people say like, are you Matthew Redd? I'm like, no, but he definitely probably says some things that I would say if I was 6'3" and 265 pounds of muscle. You know, that would probably be a cool way to live.
Yeah,
so.
You could probably get away with saying a little bit more when you've got some brute force behind you.
I would think you probably could, yeah.
Otherwise, if you're me, you're just going to hide behind your little podcast mic and say what you want and then hope nobody finds out where you live.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. So we've got book 1, Fields of Fire. We've got book 2, Lethal Range. And then you said there's going to be another 2 books coming out and a novella.
Yeah. So I've re-signed for 2 more and a novella. And we haven't revealed the title of book 3, but I will say for people who pick up Lethal Range in August, the last 3 words of the book kind of reveal the title for book 3.
All right. So that means when I get my copy, I'm just going to like flip to the back page and just read the last few words.
I know. I do feel like
I'm just horrible that way.
And I think people might do that now just to kind of see what it is. But I will say a lot of planning went into that for sure to make that work.
Oh, yeah, so. I'm sure. Yeah, I was talking to somebody the other day and they go, yeah, I choose my fiction a little bit weird. I'm like, how do you choose your fiction? They're like, I always go to the last page and read it. And if it sounds interesting, then I'll read the whole book. And I'm like,
oh, wow.
What is that? So just for the record, I've not read the last page in your book. I'm waiting to get there.
I hope you like. So I will tell you a fun fact. I don't know. And then you got to tell me how you do this as a writer. So
all right.
I'm the world's biggest hypocrite at writing because I've been an editor for a long time and I give like really good advice and then I don't listen to any of it for myself.
Yeah, right.
At all.
No, why would you?
So I always write the last chapter first.
Really?
Always. Yeah, I write the epilogue first because I know where I want to leave readers.
Yeah.
I cannot write anything. So like as an editor, this is me to my clients. Write a big outline, but I want to see the story. Me as an author, like I don't do outlines.
No.
I remember with Lethal Range, I told my agent, I was like, yeah, I'm not going to turn in an outline. And he was like, you have like a pretty big payment tied to that. So you might want to turn one in. And I was like, oh, shoot, I guess I'm going to go do an outline. But I don't do a traditional outline at all. I just kind of write down like, here's how I see the book in my head. And I'm going to do my best to write that. But things change on the fly.
Yeah.
And so I try to stay close to it. But I can't write a single word until I have the story in my head. And I only write a couple hours a day because I will sit forever just thinking about it, that chapter that I got to write. And when I can see it in my head, I can go write it. I cannot sit down and write that if I can't see it in my head, like at all.
Yep. I'm 100% the same way. And so the idea of writing an outline is absolutely terrifying because I'm like, how would I possibly envision the entire movie in my head from start to finish with every scene accounted for?
I don't. I just kind of have general concepts, but I usually know where I want the story to end to set up the next one because I think of Matthew Redd's, this series is like one big story to me, right? Like it's all one big arc. And so I kind of know where things are going and where his growth is and what's going to change in his life. So it's really about getting to the next one. Not as a like, I want you to skip over this book, but as like, I kind of know at the end what needs to happen to set up the next one.
Right.
So I write the epilogue first because my philosophy is then I go back and start at the beginning. And once I get there, I'm done.
Right.
I don't have to worry about it. Like I'm done. So with Fields of Fire, you brought up the first chapter. Like that was actually the last thing I wrote. I did the whole book and then was like, I just think it needs something to start a little faster to show readers what the book kind of becomes.
Right.
And so I went back and I wrote the prologue on that one. But I like to write the epilogue first. So I'm all upside down on this thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I don't usually write the ending of my books first. I usually have a general idea of how it's going to end. But I have random scenes throughout the whole story that I call it. I'm a Skeletor writer is what I say. Sure. I'm not like a pantser or a plotter. They always come up with those terms. I'm like, no, I'm a Skeletor. I plan the skeleton and then I watch the muscle in my head kind of grow. And I will think about my book for probably 3 or 4 months before I ever sit down and write it. And then once I sit down to write it, it just comes out. It's like, it's just typing the movie out on paper.
See, that's fascinating to me. Now, like, can you write chapters out of order or do you write it like chronologically?
I write it chronologically most of the time, unless I have a scene in my head that's extremely vivid and I'm afraid I'm going to lose it. then I'll go ahead and I'll write it down just so I've got it. But I typically write chronologically because with my books, the stories go back and forth and the mysteries are so intertwined from era to era that if I don't write them in order, I'm just going to get lost of all the clues and plot lines.
That's what I wondered. I was like, God, that feels like it'd be so hard if like today you woke up and were like, I don't want to write chapter 4, so I'll go write chapter 18. And
couldn't do that. I would be so good. I'm confused in my books anyway. By the time I reach the 50% point, I'm like, what's going on?
But I've worked with so many writers. They have such detailed outlines. They can do that. They can just wake up and like, today I'm going to write this chapter. And I'm like, that would literally terrify me because I could never do that.
I think it would paralyze me. I think I would feel completely paralyzed that I can't write this now because I have to write what it says I'm supposed to write.
Yeah.
Yep. And I don't like rules, but people who know me know that. That's why I'll never be an editor ever.
Yeah. Well, I like them when I'm editing. When you're the writer, I don't love them. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly. All right. So back to your books. Readers who want to get to know you, want to find out more about your books, where should we send them? Where should they go?
I mean, I'm on all social media platforms thanks to my kids. So on Twitter, I'm at The Real Book Spy or Ryan Steck Author. You can find, I still run the realbookspy.com.
Okay.
Which is one-stop shop for all things thriller, interviews, reviews, book announcement, cover reveals, all that stuff.
Yep.
And then, I'm on Instagram and I'm on Twitch now at twitch.com//Ryan_Steck. Facebook, everywhere.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So pretty much anybody can find you anywhere they want to find you. Except your home address. Yeah, I guess. I mean, we won't shout your home address out.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
We'll limit it to that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Ryan, thank you so much for being with us. This has been a blast. And I really hope people reach out and pick up your book. It's exciting. It's a great book for guys or girls who love thrillers. So let's not say it's a man's book because I am totally liking this book. So I'm just going to throw that out there for all my female audience listeners who are like, I don't know if I would read that. Read it. It's good. There, I said it.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right. Well, you have a wonderful day and thanks for being on. And maybe we can have you back with book 2 or 3.
Definitely. I would love that. Thank you.